Hi Archers! Patch 1.4.9 came with a lot of changes, including buffs and nerfs for some of our heroes. In this video, I'll be showing you an updated hero tier list, ranking them from worst to best along with their changes. My name is Teeds. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe and click the bell for more videos. Disclaimer: all heroes are viable in their own way. I've heard players at least reach high chapters with every hero. You may not agree with my ranking, and that's perfectly okay. We all have our own opinions, experiences, and most importantly, our playstyles. Always adjust to what you love and have fun with the most. This is based on my numbers, my calculations, my research, and personal opinion. I would like to note that there is a new hero coming out and we don't know if she is a free hero or a paid hero. If you're saving up your gems right now, I suggest to not purchase anything until she comes out in case she is a strong hero. This is my old ranking. I will show you a new ranking at the end of the video. It might not make sense to some players who are seeing it for the first time. If you would like a more detailed explanation for this tier list, I suggest you watch my old tier list video. I will give a quick brief overview here though. SYLVAN and Shade are both in first and second because they're both very strong. Shade has higher damage, however SYLVAN has better potential for picking up high tier abilities. Helix and Meowgic are in third and fourth place because it depends on your playstyle. I personally prefer Meowgic over Helix, while others prefer Helix over Meowgic. PHOREN, Onia, and Bonnie are in separate tiers, however this is my personal ranking. Honestly, it is strong personal preference here. Onia has highest damage potential of the three, and at the time ROLLA had no increased damage, and PHOREN is just more consistent. In the old ranking, I found ROLLA and Onia dependent on situations, and I value consistency, which is why I placed PHOREN above ROLLA and Onia. Bonnie was weak against bosses, and her clones were pretty flawed. TARANIS dealt no damage to targets alone, making him very weak against bosses, and relied on having enemies around. However, he was still great in wave-based chapters. Urasul's damage is slow and not very strong. Shari's tentacles dealt a lot of damage, however only have strengths against stationary targets, which means she has more useless situations than other heroes. If you disagree with my previous placements, that is perfectly fine. Each hero has their own uses, and despite the ranking, some are stronger than others depending on the situation. These rankings are based on numbers, their pros and cons put together. Okay, let's begin. TARANIS vs PHOREN. In my previous ranking, TARANIS was ranked 9th place and PHOREN was ranked 5th place. They had quite a huge gap in between the two heroes. Power-wise, PHOREN was stronger than TARANIS because his damage was much more reliable and less circumstantial. Old TARANIS had no initial damage, so his damage would only proc when there was a target nearby. That was a huge con. It means he was a lot weaker during boss fights and targets not nearby other enemies and targets who are alone. He has since received a huge buff. Instead of only dealing 30% of his base damage to nearby targets, he now always deals 30% of his base damage with every single hit to targets who are alone. All targets around that target will still be hit for 30% of his base damage. His damage will now scale up to 45% to the single target if there are more targets nearby. So the more targets there are, the higher the damage. Initially, both heroes have the same base attack. However, TARANIS will gain more attack than PHOREN when upgraded. TARANIS also has higher HP. Let's compare level 80 TARANIS and PHOREN. With a base attack of 920 for TARANIS and a base attack of 841 for PHOREN, PHOREN's damage per second would be 2,462. TARANIS DPS would be 2,069. Instead of saying damage per second, I'll say DPS for short. Here we can see PHOREN's DPS is higher when TARANIS is attacking a single target. However, TARANIS' damage is already higher than PHOREN's when there is another target nearby. So with the initial target and one target nearby, TARANIS' DPS is 2,626. With TARANIS only needing one other target, his DPS is now higher than PHOREN's. If TARANIS had 3 targets, his DPS would be 3,183, and with 4 targets or more, his damage would be 3,740. This includes the initial target. In boss situations where there is only one target, PHOREN is stronger than TARANIS. However, if TARANIS were to pick up one major attack boost, his damage would be stronger than PHOREN's. This buff is huge for TARANIS. In my opinion, if you're choosing between PHOREN and TARANIS, TARANIS now has more uses than before, is less circumstantial, and it is not hard to surpass PHOREN's damage. Because he now deals damage to single targets and his lightning damage can be modified with attack boosts, I find him stronger than PHOREN. PHOREN's con is that he cannot boost his fire tick damage. There is also a pro to this. While you cannot increase the fire tick damage, this means you also cannot decrease it. It will always stay the same. TARANIS' lightning damage, however, does decrease with multi-shot and front arrow while not having any added benefits to his lightning. PHOREN has the advantage of dealing more damage in situations where you have to dodge more. Because the fire tick stays on the target until the end, he will deal more damage than TARANIS, who has to always hit the target. In conclusion, TARANIS is pretty expensive. He is 1,000 gems while PHOREN costs only 50,000 coins. TARANIS can be stronger very easily and is stronger in a lot of situations where there are multiple targets. However, if you're just looking number-wise, I do not think TARANIS is worth the 1,000 gems. Instead, I suggest saving those gems for either Helix or Miagic. But if you really just like TARANIS as a hero and you want to use him over other heroes, then he is a lot stronger now and stronger than PHOREN in my opinion, but PHOREN may have better single target damage than TARANIS unless TARANIS builds up a lot of attack over time. In the end though, I do recommend buying all heroes because of their added universal stats. Next we have Shade and SYLVAN. We are using their level 80 stats. Shade's base damage is 1,197 and SYLVAN's base damage is 1,108 at level 80. Shade and SYLVAN have some minor changes. SYLVAN now has increased DPS because Freeze now has added damage. It is 10% of his base damage, which is very minor, and because SYLVAN, from my calculations, only has a 15% chance to proc Freeze, the small buff doesn't make a huge difference. His poison now has a 12% initial hit once per target, which really doesn't make a huge difference either, but the thing here is that his poison damage has been nerfed from 80% to 70%. Shade received a minor buff. Her explosions can now chain explosion to other targets, however the chance seems rather small. I did not calculate this because it is way too circumstantial. SYLVAN's DPS is 4,568 and Shade's DPS is 4,817. I would say there is no change here to the ranking. It is still completely up to you. Shade has higher DPS overall, which can be boosted a lot with attack boosts, and SYLVAN's DPS is lower, but still very strong and has the added benefit of picking up high tier abilities. Next, ROLLA. ROLLA's change after TARANIS was the most interesting to me. She's 7th on the ranking, but as I said earlier, it honestly depends on each individual player. ROLLA does freeze targets, and a lot of players may not like that because it can cancel animations and make things confusing, but in the right hands, ROLLA can be powerful. ROLLA has a 12% freeze damage that can be modified. With a base damage of 1,118, ROLLA's DPS is 2,166. If we compare this to ROLLA and PHOREN, ROLLA's DPS is lower than PHOREN's and higher than TARANIS if TARANIS was only attacking one target. But this does mean in general ROLLA has higher single target damage than TARANIS. She also has one of the highest base damages in the game, and adding that freeze damage on top makes it even more powerful. There are things that I cannot calculate, and that is ROLLA's potential damage. Because she has a freeze effect, this means ROLLA spends less time dodging and more time attacking. This can also contribute to higher damage overall. In conclusion, I personally find ROLLA a lot stronger now. She was lacking something in my opinion, but her buff, I think it was just perfect for her. I honestly find her stronger than Onia because she is more consistent and I value consistency. Onia has no changes, however he can reach higher damage potential than ROLLA, but he relies on enemy placement, which is something I'm not a fan of. ROLLA is stronger than Onia in boss-only fights and single target fights. Next, Bonnie. Bonnie has a great buff too. Not much to say about her though because it does rely on chance and clone placement. Instead of a chance to spawn clones on enemy kill, she can now spawn clones on enemy hit. The change in my opinion is a lot better, but she's still not as reliable in comparison to the other heroes since clones can be easily countered by obstacles. Enemies that move around or change positioning can also counter her clones, and this is more of an issue in later chapters. There is now a 50% damage increase on clones and the damage cannot be increased. Last, we have Urusel. Urusel has been buffed. His poison used to tick for 40% of his damage every second until the target dies. He now deals 12% initial hit and 45% ongoing damage every second until the target dies. Not a huge buff, but it is still a buff and I would say there is no change to his placement. This damage cannot be modified. That is all the changes and this is my new hero placement. SYLVAN and Shade's placement remain the same. TARANIS moves from 9th place to the same tier as ROLLA and PHOREN's place. Onia moves from 6th place to 8th place. Bonnie and Urusel remain in the same place. Remember, this is my personal tier list that, honestly, when you look at it, it probably needs context. I'd like to stress again that players have reached high chapters with all heroes already, and one ranked above the other doesn't mean the one below is bad. I would like to say that Onia's ranking seems pretty low, but trust me, he is extremely strong. It depends on what you value. I just value consistent damage over circumstantial damage. He is great for chapters of lots of monsters and wave-based chapters. I find his damage stronger than PHOREN and ROLLA. PHOREN just has better consistency and is really cheap as well to use, while ROLLA in the right hands can be pretty strong. TARANIS just has so much better potential now, and if you're willing to spend 1000 gems, he is still not close to Helix and Meowgic's damage. They are tiers above, so if you want to invest into a hero that is strong and you don't care who that is, I recommend saving up some more gems for Helix and Meowgic first. That is all for today's video. I thank you very much for watching. Subscribe and click the bell for more Archero videos. Comment down below who your favorite hero is. I hope to see you again for the next one. Bye!